Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain. I'm the only host for this episode, uh, which is pretty funny because I tried to change the intro last episode and now I had to change it completely, which is great. I'm joined tonight by my old head coach and a good friend of mine, Coach Bo Collins. Coach, why don't you introduce yourself, man? Just kind of tell us about your football career and what got you here.
My name's Bo Collins. In I think my 17th year of coaching, started out as in the one of the smallest school districts that were playing football in Arkansas as a defensive coordinator. My first year out of college, and spent a couple of years there. Got to move to a bigger school where I was the defensive line coach. Worked my way up to being the DC for the junior high program, and ended up spending 4 years there, and then took my first job as a varsity DC at a high school program in Northwest Arkansas. Spent 6 years there, working for the same head coach, and then followed him into Oklahoma when he went to Stillwell, Oklahoma. Spent 2 years there. Spent my final year there as the head coach, where I was lucky, or had the good fortune to have Coach Chamberlain join my staff, and we did some good things. Had one of the best records in the school's history there, and then, as coaches' careers go, sometimes moved on. Ended up back at my alma mater coaching this year, coaching offensive line and helping to maybe install a little bit of spread pass game stuff, help out in adding that to a program that's been known for running the football for the last 30 years.
That's awesome, and that's what we came to talk about tonight was mixing up some offensive schemes and just you're kind of doing it like taking traditionally wing T teams and adding another thing to their plate, right? And people are doing it all over the place. I think we've seen it quite a bit actually over the last few years. Just maybe people haven't identified it, or maybe we just don't talk about it enough. I don't know. But it doesn't feel like it's that new of a concept. It's just some people are doing the extremes like you are, which is trying to put that spread look on a traditional wing T, like real wing T team. So I think conversation could be a lot of fun tonight, just talking football. Before we get there, though, I want to talk about your game. You said y'all did pretty well the other night.
We did. We went to another school in Northwest Arkansas. We won 49-14. We put up 491 yards of total offense that night. Had 44 carries for 392 yards, and then went over 50% in the passing game, through 7 of 12 for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. The biggest highlight, I think, of the night was we had 6 different guys score a touchdown that night. So it was a really good night for us.
That's awesome. Just spreading the ball around in a wing T offense. 12 passes in a night really is that's a testament to to your impact on that team, it sounds like.
Well, it's not just mine. It's been an evolution thing, but when I graduated high school from there, I don't think they ever took a snap in the shotgun formation. Everything they did was under center, and they would throw the ball a few times a game, tight end dumps, a few play action or rollout passes, the things you always saw from wing T teams. And Coach Absher's done a great job of wanting to evolve uh, his offense and his program, and add things that he thinks can give him an advantage. And I think he sees that opportunity to meld that other philosophy in a way that complements his philosophy he's already got built, that can give us an advantage, or give us a tool to attack defenses. Maybe those nights that the run's not quite getting it done, or to give them something else to prepare for that week. You watch a wing T team that's been a wing T team for the last 32 or 33 years, and all of a sudden they're throwing flood and 3x1, and they're throwing 4 verts out of a spread look, and then they're running their buck sweep that they've ran since they were in middle school, but they're doing it out of a shotgun formation. Just gives those opposing teams more to have to prepare for, and hopefully gives us an advantage.
Yeah, I'm coaching over to Wausau this year, and On the freshman staff, we're not doing it. We're not really combining much. It's basically just that offense, and it's kind of how the varsity is as well. They're really just a pro style offense. Um, we run some single wing type stuff, but we don't have tight ends with a hand in the ground at all. So it's the offense just is what it is. It's always going to look the same. We're going to run power counter, inside outside zone, and some passing concepts. So it's not anything overly crazy. But it works. When it works well. That we had a chance to have a shutout game on Friday for our varsity staff, and we let the team kind of creep back in at the end. We had Jinx, and Jinx is another great team in the area. Like they're very, very well coached. Um, I know their defensive coordinator a little more personally, and I've been trying to get him on the show for a long time actually. So maybe one of these days he'll jump on. But they're a 3-4 team, and he's kind of the first guy that I started watching his stuff over the tight front. And anyway, they started to creep back in it there at the end, but we finally ran out of time and secured the victory. So it sounds like it was a good, successful Friday for both of us. Luckily,
It was. We had to prepare for another one this week. You know,
yeah,
same week. Start
they
over, and
they kind of just start over and come at us again, right? I think
they
we
do.
we have Broken Arrow this week, and then Union the week after that. So our schedule that it's a onslaught at the beginning. It is absolutely crazy, but
It is. We're going to go to Gravett, which good team. They're usually well coached, competitive. It's been a while since I've seen them since I left Northwest Arkansas, and then we're going to go back over into Oklahoma for week 3 and go to Metro Christian, which will be a big test, I
that
think.
is a big test. Well, good luck to that stuff, man. Real quick, we'll pay the bills and we'll jump into the conversation. So you can go over to joedanielfootball.com/foundations. That's where Joe has set up 3 of the 4 defenses. You can find some packages there, and you can look a little bit at the pistol power offense. He has his 3 what he calls cornerstone um, web clinics, just things that really make the systems make sense. Once again, like I said last week, that's where I start every single time I install the defense or sell it to a DC so he can install it, whatever it takes. But that's over at joedanielfootball.com/foundations. Athletic speed movement is Joe and I's little attempt to push Del Basquet's experience of speed training into the future. So he's at 45 years. We finally did the math, and we were off by a year, but 45 years. He was the very first speed coach in the NFL. We've got him teaching his stuff, his drills, everything that you need from Coach Basket to make your kids run and move fast. It's not just speed training; it's fast movement training. It fits basically every offensive scheme too. If you want to run between tackles, you can do it. If you want to run outside zone, you can do it. Whatever it is, the Basket system will definitely help you out. That's over at athleticspeedandmovement.com. You can jump over there and sign up today. All right. I'm not nearly as good at that with Joe's gone. Joe, come back. Sell your system, man. You got to come pay the bills. I'm not good at this. All right, man. So we'll jump into question 1 here, and that is, what are the common offenses we see run together? So, we talked about kind of how a lot of people are, I think, running some offensive systems together, and we just don't recognize it. Maybe I kind of think about the pro and spread, and that's just because I feel it's like every system has an empty package. Um, every system, even when they're a pro team, maybe their tight end just goes out and stands in a slot from time to time. And I don't know, once you get past that, maybe the passing concepts aren't as crazy. Maybe they're not all full air raid. You're not going to Mike Leach out on people if you've also got a tight end in the game. Ron Mackey's been on a few times, and he's like against tight ends. Like, you don't need them, just spread out and throw the damn ball.
I'm going to send Ron a sweatshirt that says "Long live the tight end and the fullback."
And the fullback, he needs it. So I think the pro and the spread are 2 that have really started to mingle together. We're breaking down film right now, and that's what we're seeing out of these 6A teams around us, helping other DCs break down their film, and that's what you're seeing there. It's just guys want to bring the tight end and run the ball, and then they want to put him out and put him in some type of a safe route, or maybe block him from an edge, whatever it is. Help him be the guy that blocks on a rollout. So I think they're maybe not completely spread in that air raid thing, but I really think that, having an H back and a tight end and a guy that can move around a little bit is combining those two.
Oh, definitely. I spent a few years early in my career. I think I worked for him for 5 years. A coach that ran spread, and he really wanted to be the 2x2, 3x1 guy. And then every year, all 4 years, we would have sets where we had the H back in, and we would run power counter, ISO, and then we came on a year where we had a really big, thick, full H back. Not very fast, wasn't a receiver type guy. We end up in the I formation, and even that year we'd be in the I. We'd come out and we'd have series where we were in the spread, and we tended to run power counter, uh, some form of outside zone or toss sweep every year, and that was kind of my first taste of seeing a guy mix offenses. Because if you ask us what we were, I really couldn't tell you. I'd have to say, well, we run an I formation and then we run spread sets. And at that point, I think I really looked at it like we ran two different offenses, and I probably didn't have the experience to really see that we were running a lot of the same stuff. Just the formations changed and the look we gave defenses changed. And we'd be more of one year and more of the other year. And I think he was really basing that off of what the talents were of the team and what we had to work with.
Yeah, I spent my Saturday breaking down personnel groups for one of these bigger teams, and that's my introduction to that, even having personnel groups, because I don't know what the cutoff is, but Stillwell was 4A. We were there; it was considered a 4A. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of kids running around there, so I'm not sure that they should have been. And then I've been at a 3A and a 1A school, and none of those have I ever, as a DC, had to worry about, or any kind of assistant, had to worry about personnel groups. You just had 11 kids that could get it, and you're generally
Mm.
hiding one, right? Um, Maybe your numbers like 9 through 15 are all pretty much the same kid. And so you've got your guys that can go, and then the guys that you're filling in the gaps with. So there's no way that I'm going to take off, one of my top performers to put on a kid that just can't. Well, why are you, not why are you here? He's here there for a reason, but we definitely have to hide him when he's on the field. Um, and so I think that is a reason why we do some of this stuff and don't realize we're in multiple offensive systems, is because, like I said, you're just going to take that tight end, get his hand out of the dirt. Now he's a wing on the backside, or then I'm going to run him out to a slot. Maybe he's in the trips. We've seen a big spread in like the trips nub or the trips closed, whichever way you want to close it, right? So then people can even try to do a spread thing and not get out of their pro set, or not get rid of their tight end. So um, now seeing that people legitimately have like 20 kids that can get it on offense, it's pretty wild. We kind of faced that when we went to Ada last year, right? Like that was the first time I seen the extremes, and I'll let you talk all about Ada because I was just the assistant that was just stuck in awe of what the heck was going on.
Well, we get these trade films on Ada, and they come out the first series, and they're under center wing T. So the first time I'm watching the game, I'm feeling like, okay, I know what to expect. This is going to be buck sweep, power, waggle, trap. And then watching through, they go to defense, they come back out on offense, and they're doubles, throwing spread concepts. And we start breaking it down further, and they keep switching back and forth between under center wing T game and their spread passing attack, running spread run game. We start trying to figure out which kids are coming on and going off the field. If this kid's coming on the field, we know to expect this stuff. Trying to find something to give us a little bit of I guess, indicator on what we need to expect that drive, and then try to break down the tendencies. And it caused us, I think, we had to spend time on defense preparing for two different offenses, which is being a DC was a colossal annoyance to me because I'm spending half my time preparing for under center wing T attack, teaching my kids, hey, the guards are pulling, we're going here, we got to fit it this way. And now we've got to spend another 15-minute period talking about what they're doing if they come out in doubles or trips. It's I'm not sure how they taught those two systems and had them. The kids ran them well on both sides of the ball. They're doing a great job out there, and I know they're causing DCs all over 4A Oklahoma to lose sleep at night.
Yeah, they are. That's really good segue into our next point, which is why should you incorporate that second offensive package and when not to. I also want to talk about why you probably shouldn't. And I think if you can, as long as you can keep it simple, you can maintain simplicity in your schemes. Um, then I think you get a lot of benefit to like what you just said, making that opposing DC go, okay, here's going to be my key reads on when they're in spread. Here's who I want to have on the field. Here's my key reads when they're in the wing tee, right? Like, especially when you take those two super opposing ways of playing football and mesh them together. Because I'm going to assume that you have personnel groups to do that. I can't really remember what Ada did because, you just kind of cut certain things out of your memory and you don't ever go back to them. But, and that was a night we don't really like to remember. Kudos to those guys. But, I would assume that you're going to have different personnel groups to do that. And if you're not, I'm not really sure how you get all that installed without overloading anybody.
The I think, and you can name a number of guys who are doing spread and wing T right now, and they found a way to run buck sweep and trap, the double handoff, the rocket toss sweep stuff, and a lot of this gap scheme, traditional wing T or flex bone type run game out of a shotgun spread look. And there's not a lot of additional teaching to that when you start taking an under center wing T team and converting them to a shotgun wing T. Or you take a spread team, there may be a little more teaching going to the shotgun wing T stuff. And I had that experience with the last guy I worked for. He was a spread guy. He ran 10 personnel, 20 personnel spread, and then slowly over time started working closer and closer into putting a tight end wing down there and running buck sweep. Now we ran power counter buck sweep when we were spread teams out of the 20 personnel package. So the kids already kind of knew the basic idea of the play. They knew what we wanted to achieve out of it. I guess knew the concept. And then we just had to tweak the blocking a little bit. It changes because we're now doing it this way. We've added a tight end now and a wing back. So it wasn't a huge change. And then the guys going under center wing T and shotgun wing T, those kids know it. You're not teaching the five linemen something new. It may be a little bit different for the center or a little bit different for a tackle, but the whole concept of the play they understand. And then we get to start tagging things in out of the spread world, like RPOs, which if you weren't in conflict enough about wing T misdirection, we had two guys out here running some kind of RPO concept or a quick screen away from what you think is a buck sweep look going the other way. And now we put defenses in conflict, and there's not a whole lot of additional teaching time. I think you lose a little bit out of each set. They probably don't run under center wing T as well as the guys that live and die by it. Every snap is that system, or the other spread guys. We're not going to run complicated passing attacks. They're a simplified version of it. We're reading maybe just one guy instead of reading a full field because we don't take our quarterbacks and spend the amount of time to implement those things.
Right.
So you have to be willing to give up a little bit of that to attain that flexibility or that the ability to be that multiple.
Yeah, but in that, I mean, especially in high school ball and at smaller levels, you're not usually going to be against a coach who has a ton of experience doing any of that stuff anyway, right? They just don't have enough time. I mean, if you're not doing 7-on-7, what do you get, like 3 weeks to install everything to go play week one? Like, you're not going to get anything in that refined. Now, you may be a savant at it. You may be the spread guy, and that's fine, but you still got to pass on that knowledge to a 14 to 18-year-old kid and have them take that knowledge and then use it in the heat of battle, which, that's where you're going to find that lack of complexity anyway. They just can't handle it, which is the whole purpose behind, the coach simple, play fast, win. It's give kids a one thing to do or two and give them the key that makes it happen, and just let them perform, because that's what you have time for, right? Um, sure, maybe you can't go to the college level and run these together because now you're expected to have a way more refined system on both ends. But I think that you're okay here. I would say that I think you have to make sure you spend enough time in your second package, whatever it is. If you're a spread dude that wants to add in a little wing tee, or if you're Coach Collins and you're a wing tee and needing to add in a little bit of spread, you got to do enough of the other one to make it a defensive coordinator actually spend that time, right? Also, you got to spend enough in it that your guys are getting those game reps to know, like, oh, this is what it looks like at full speed, because we all know that practice is never, you don't ever get the real look. I mean, um, changing your base calls, I think, is the next real why. It's the next big thing that I see. If you are traditionally running a lot of buck, you're running belly, a little bit of waggle, the ability to just lighten that box and run some traditional inside zone, run some power, right? Like, yeah, I mean, I think buck is just power. It's a different version of it, realistically. Um, I guess some people could argue that it isn't, but now you're just doing it with a smaller, like, you've lightened that box, you're spreading people out. So your base calls can kind of change. You're not stuck in the buck world and waggle. You can give a front side linebacker a different read. You can make him see something else, and I think there's a little benefit there, just to add, just being able to mix up those base calls, give people a true second thing to have to plan for. If you're just going spread and trying to run buck sweep, like, you've not changed that much. You've changed blocking angles, right? And maybe they run a different personnel in the group in case you throw the ball. You've changed the threat. But if you're just going to go out there and run the same stuff, I don't know that you've changed that much.
No, I think you're right. You've got to have at least a change in the offense when you change that, or the key reads stay the same, like you mentioned. I want to say one of the big things is I watched some game film of a team that's shifting. They line up in some wing T set, and then they shift to gun trips, or tight end, like trips nub, and the quarterback backs up. One of the running backs leaves the backfield to be number 3 receiver, and now you see a defense scrambling to get adjusted. And then they have the ability to run outside zone, inside, whatever version of inside zone they run, or power counter stuff, throw flood to the field. Or if you over rotate, you make a mistake, they throw tight end dump, which is something that wing T team's been throwing since they were 5th graders. And just because your kids, the 16, 17-year-olds out there on the field, don't understand how they have to move to adjust to this set, and you get them out of position. And really, it's nothing more than saying to your kids, line up in right and shift to lasso, or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Yeah, the ability to line up and get them to. Joe's real big in this pre-programming your brain. In fact, if you're a JDFB insider, you probably got an email recently that talked about pre-programming your brain on a play to gain an advantage. So if you do come out and you've got what appears to be 2 tight ends, a wing, fullback, and now the quarterback's just yelling shift, and now, like you said, we're in 2x2 or 3x1 or any variation of any other offense, it might be too late, right? You've already pre-programmed, like, oh, it's big boy ball, and then now we have a very light box. Or maybe you're screwing up those alignments, or whatever it is, whatever your advantages you're going for, as likely you get those. But yeah, man, I mean, I love the combo that you've put together. In fact, I just really think it's awesome. And I think there's a ton of reasons why you can and should do that. Couple about real quick, couple things you shouldn't, or reasons you shouldn't do it. If you haven't been successful, if you're taking over a 3 or 4 win team, I would say maybe even a 5-win team, don't go in and think that just adding in another thing is going to make them better. There's probably, they aren't good at whatever they had to begin with, right? Sure, your system may include, I want to be spread, I want to run some pro stuff, I want to run some double wing, whatever your idea of football is, but you probably needed to get those guys really good at doing a single thing. and I don't even know which one to tell you to run. I think they're all great. Whatever one you can coach the easiest, the one that you can make kids the most successful, that's the one that I would probably pick. Young teams also, we see it at the freshman level. Like we want to run varsity concepts. We want to run, um, every play in the playbook, offensively and defensively. Right on defense, like I want to go in and put in some blitzes. I know I can't, so I don't, but I want to add more. Um, but they're just so young, and they're already if you're a freshman coach or JV or whatever, you've got these guys that number one, maybe they do, maybe they don't have the skill level. And then you throw in all the new school stuff, right? School gets a little harder in the ninth grade. Uh, High school is much harder than it was in junior high, unfortunately for those cats. And then, just being young and trying to prove themselves, and they're all like the competition in our locker room is ridiculous. Like we have the two alpha dudes, and then everyone else is like arguing and fighting for second or third place or whatever in the pecking order. And so there's just a lot of that. And so, if you've got that going on, it's probably not a time you want to be like, oh, yeah, let's run these two or three offensive systems. Like it doesn't make sense. At some point, you have to make it make sense.
No, and I've got that. So I'm the junior high offensive coordinator where I'm at now, and they've run. It's been an under center wing T team since before I was in high school. I think this is like the 34th year that he's been at the school, and I don't know what they did. I have no idea what they did before he came, but these kids have grown up, and I've got kids whose daddies played there for him. So they know the under center stuff, and even just starting to try to incorporate some of the shotgun stuff, because I've got an eighth grade quarterback. The kid can throw it around a bit. He's going to be pretty good if he keeps working at it. So I'm trying to give him enough of that to let him see that, hey, there's something here for you. Keep working. But just those little tweaks, I got to a point right before the season started that I saw him start messing up the base stuff, and had to say, whoa, okay, I found that point. I've got him overloaded. And so I had to pull back, because we were trying to go add some shotgun sets and run some of the base plays with the little itty bitty tweaks that are required to go into the gun. And then also adding some shifts and some motions in that they hadn't done before. And then they start messing up buck, sweep, and trap, which is probably the first two plays they were taught when they were fifth graders. And lucky enough saw that happen. So we dialed it back a bit, added one shotgun set and two plays, and repping that until they get it good. And then, when they get that down, we'll add maybe one shift or trade motion, something to try to take advantage of it. But when you start adding those things, you've got to go slow enough that they learn them, and that they don't go into that overload mode and shut down and start messing up stuff they have learned and they have down already.
Yeah, the youth, I mean, we see it right now, and like we're just running. I guess we kind of run inside outside zone. Okay, we might run too much. Inside outside zone, we got traditional counter and GH counter. We have power. I think we have a lead of all of those. And we try some pin and pull, which I think we've just installed as buck sweep, because I'm not sure that it always seems to be the guards pulling, and we see a lot of three fronts. So I'm thinking maybe we might have just installed buck sweep and called it pin pull. But regardless, that's a lot. That's a lot for those freshmen to remember. I still have kids that when we call our inside zone to the right, they go the wrong way. And even numbers to the right, like that's every football system except apparently the traditional Delaware wing T, which is like, I'm not sure what you guys run, your weird 3-number system that Joe's in love with. But that's not, it doesn't make sense to run right when you hear the number 9 that's not over there. Okay, it's definitely to the left, way out there. So, but anyway, so I mean, you give them an even number, or you give them a word that means something to the right, and they just go the wrong way. And like you said, that's we've probably hit that point where like, okay, our install's too much. They just can't remember all those blocking terms, and so I think that comes right back into why not to go multiples, because I can't even get kids to remember I mean, we run essentially a single wing. We just have an H back, right? Like he's not even a
Mhm.
tight end. We don't even incorporate a tight end. We're just an H back. So I don't know what offense system that even fits in, but um, we can't get kids to remember those blocking schemes. So now if we try to add in a buck, we try to add in belly, we tried to add, like it. Eventually, it's just going to get. It's just too much. So it's just that youth, that lack of football experience, that lack of football knowledge.
And I think you brought up something you didn't even know you brought it up, but you talked about the funny three number system, right? If you're a spread guy and maybe you do know enough wing T that you're going to install it in the wrong, don't install that three number system. Like name Buck Sweep, Buccaneer, or whatever fits within the system that your kids already know. And the same way, if you're an under center wing T guy and you're going to spread, you probably don't want to install word
Like,
based play calls. If you're calling it, if you're calling 139 reverse or whatever your play calls are, you don't need to go to running, hey, line up and rope and run Skittles. It's not a good idea. It's stick with the terminology that your kids know. And you have to be the one that finds a way to make it fit because you're the one that should understand both of those systems. Don't make the kid that's been that three number play call system his whole life now learn some words because that's the way spread guys call it. Find a way to call it with your numbers.
yeah, we've really kind of pushed in the last part here, which is just how can we add that second package or system without overloading our players? And you're right. I mean, that's a key point is keep the terminology similar. I've even been a part of like now multiple offensive installs, right? I've done the pro thing, I've done the gun T, I've done Flexbone, I've done Pro I. So every year I've had a different offense, which has been great for me as a coach because now like I've kind of got to sink my teeth into how each of these things really work. And but I can still all three Pro I, the gun T for the most part, and now this whatever pro system or single wing system I'm in now, the terminology is almost all the same. The only team that's been different was the team where I was at where we had a flex bone, and now even our blocking terminology was just weird. It was like we purpose. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't on purpose. Maybe it's just what that coach knew, and I didn't at the time. But trying to run a scoop block, and I'm like, uh, what is that? Like, is that just a zone block? Is it? Look, there's zone and man. Like, there's only two things here. What the hell is a scoop block, right? So
Well, that was zone long before they knew what zone was.
right, right. And so exactly my point. So if your terminology, if you've used scoop block your entire life, don't go changing it now to try to be like, oh no, we're running wide or outside or stretch or whatever. Just keep your terminology the same. I even think as much as like keeping your the lettering of your players the same, right? Like that's always the what's your running back called? Mine's the T, it's the F, it's the R, it's A. Like, you can kind of go on forever and ever, right? So you start calling all these weird names just because you have your second tight end of the game. You don't have to call him the U, right? That's what my first coach taught me. It was a Y and then a U. That was your double tight end system. And we made kids come out and be the U instead of going, hey, when we want 12 personnel, I just want fullback. I want you on the line, right? You're going to be down here. No, we tried to like change it up and have this additional letter that it was the same kid. Like you were saying, the same kid go fill that position. So maybe you can change some of that up and just make the kids' knowledge be already in that system. You don't have to go adding a bunch of stuff. So I think when you get into like how can we do this, I really think the small package first. I went to and you and I went this year as well. We went over to Kenny Simpson's gun tee clinic, right? And
Mhm.
because that's what we ran at Stillwell, we ran the gun tee with some flair, realistically. And he talked about he had a whole clinic, like an hour and a half talk there on how to run this as just a package to supplement or be complementary to your current offense. And I think that's the way to start with any multi offensive system, multi scheme system, I guess. But I think you just need to have a little bit. You cannot go in and put in all of the inside, outside, pin and pull, power counter, all of those run plays. You don't need them all, right? If you're
Right.
already running the gun tee, I mean, sorry, the wing tee, and you're running your bellies and your bucks and I don't even know trap and whatever else you guys have, right? Y'all have like plays up on plays up on plays, which for some reason don't exist in any other offense. So if you've got
No.
all those, you don't need five more run plays, right? So pick a thing that you like, and it's kind of the old, pick pick the front side play, pick the counter, and then pick the pass off of it. Like maybe that's the three. And so your system, you can come out and work in it and survive and score points and throw people off. But your kids don't have to remember six more blocking schemes.
I think that's huge. And maybe those teams that are really successful when they get up to running those multiple system offenses in the varsity level, they start in the seventh grade or the middle school, whatever that base, the first group of kids are, and they teach their base. This is who we are. And then in junior high, you get the package. And I think that's probably what I'm going for this year is to have the package, the spread package. It's real small. We can get into it. 3-4 pass plays, 2 run plays, or maybe 3 or 4 if it's the same blocking scheme that we have out of the base. And then when you get into high school, you get a more fully developed package. I think one of them is still your identity. Like when it's down to the wire, your back's against the wall, you have to know which one you're going to go to and what your play is. But that other package it's maybe more than just a few plays. It's a fully developed package where you have 3-4 formations and 4 or 5 run plays, 4 or 5 pass plays, and it's fully capable of scoring and being ran for an entire game if that's what gives you the advantage over the other team.
Yeah, what you said there, like keeping the blocking schemes the same, and I think that's huge on installing anything in any pack. Even on defense, I try to use it, and that's just the look. We're going to install this, but this is just that you already know with a wrinkle. And so, if you're traditionally a power counter team and you want to install buck sweep, look, it's power, whatever you call your power play, right? But the front side guards go in too. Everyone else does the same thing. Maybe your center can't block all the way down to a 3 tech or something. He's got to manhandle the nose guard. But aside from that, like it's the same thing. We didn't change a lot, right? Belly or ISO, those are essentially the same exact play. So if those are the two you're mixing, you're not even changing much. Like your just alignment is changed. If you go back to that ASCA system, right? Like what lever we pull, and we're probably just gonna realign you and do the same thing from a different place. And now that I'm having to scout all these ridiculous offenses for a defensive coordinator job again, I remember why formations are so stinking valuable. Yeah, add more formations. Maybe less plays even, just add more formations. So anytime I can say, hey, this is that play, except we're doing this little thing, I think that's huge, and that will quickly allow you to adapt. It's kind of why formations are so cheap, right? Like schemes are very, very expensive to install. Formations are super cheap because you can say, look, 3x1 is the same as 2x2. You just got to get across the field to run your route, or you mirror your route, or whatever the case is for that scheme. It's the same thing, right? That's why we do it that way. So I think if you're doing that on new install, you're helping your kids' bandwidth not get burnt through quite so quickly. All right. So we discussed installing them things that are very similar, keep the terminology similar. And the last thing I think is just staying within your system. You don't, and what I mean by that is I guess more your ability to coach it. I understand that even like we're talking about mixing complete opposites, which is great, but it still needs to fit what you do, right? If you're a 50 runs per game kind of team, I don't know that you want to go to the spread system just to throw 4 straight plays and have a 3 and out, or turnover on downs or whatever. Like I think you still have to fit what you're trying to do so that your kids maintain that mentality. You said it a while ago when you said, when the game's on the line, you need to know what system you're going to, what play you're going to, and I think the players need that as well. They need to know the system, the formation, the play. They want to know what player is going to have the rock, right? Like they probably already have that burned into their brain by the point that they get to whatever the point was in the game. I mean, when the game is on the line, we got to get a yard. They know who's going to carry the rock. I think you should as well. But also you shouldn't be, I don't think you should be at a point where like we're going to run all these out of gun T and then we're going to switch and just throw the ball. One, because it's very, people can scout that pretty quickly. All right. The threat of everything, I guess, needs to be there. But I think you still need to maintain like what it is you do, how you coach, how your kids are wired to operate. I mean, I would think even if you're trying to go spread with your wing T guys, you're probably still wanting to run the ball quite a bit, right?
Oh yeah, and that's still the focus. you want to run those same base run plays, the 3 or 4 that those kids know and trust. Maybe those are the first 3 or 4 you install when you go to the package, and you teach them, hey, we're running this play. It's everything's the same. We've got to make this one small change on this blocking assignment. Um, and then they build some comfort into that new package because it's just a new formation. We're still running the same stuff. And then you start sprinkling in the stuff that's a little wider out, um, the pass plays. But even the pass pro, the way we talk about it, whether we're under center or we're spread, we're using the same terms for those kids. We're still running the same pass pro. Um, that gives those 5 linemen up front some comfort. Like it didn't change. The only thing is the center's got to get the ball back there to him. And then he's doing the same thing if we're running a rollout pass because it's the same pass pro that he's been taught before, and we're using the same word for it. The receivers, for the most part, didn't add a whole lot of new routes. We renamed some things. So maybe what you called smash, we don't call smash because that's not what the kids knew it as in the wing T system. We call it, even in the spread system, what they know it as. And that accelerated the learning. They picked it up much faster because it felt familiar to them. And there's that comfort level. We're still running our offense. I think that's maybe the big thing. It shouldn't feel like you've switched offenses. And I hate to say that the guys at Ada were obviously doing it. Maybe they found a really inventive way to make those kids believe it was the same thing. But I don't think your kids should feel like you switched offenses just because you went from under center to shotgun wing T, or from your pro I stuff to your 20 back spread stuff. They should feel like this is the offense. It's just another part of it. And I think when you reach that point that they believe it's just another part of the same offensive scheme, you've got it installed pretty well, and you've put it together well enough that those kids know it and feel like it's theirs.
Absolutely. Well, Coach Collins, man, I think we've checked all the boxes this evening. I want to just let you know I greatly appreciate you jumping on with me tonight. It's been too long, man. I feel like I never get to see the old crew. We went a whole season, it feels like, and here we are, all jumping back into week 0 or week 1 of football. So this comes out in 3 weeks, so I guess it will be around almost mid-season by then. So hopefully our luck has stayed the same and we could keep pulling victories. But man, I do appreciate you jumping on with me.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy getting on here and being able to talk some ball.
We will pay the bills and we'll do this little closing thing. If you are looking for a system, if you don't have a system yet, if you just have a playbook and you're running it and you're going, guys, I don't understand what you're talking about. I have some wing T plays, and then I have some, some empty and some trips and doubles. I'm doing all that already. Perhaps you just have a really good system and you don't know it, but there's also a chance you don't have a system at all. And you can find an offensive system and a full defensive system over at join.joinannualfootball.com. Go there today, sign up for the price of your email and a $1 bill. You get $7, 7 days of access. There's no paywalls once you get in there. Like, it's just for that 7 days. It's everything that's in the system is available to you for 7 days. 4 defensive packages are the 4-3, the 4-2-5, the 3-3 stack, and the 3-4. We don't have the 5-2. Okay. If you want the 5-2, just do the 3-4. And like I'm slowly converting a school from what they said was a 3-4, but is really a 5-2 system into a real 3-4 system. And it is sometimes it's complicated. The terminology is not the same, right? It doesn't fit. So get in here, you get 4 systems. You can be multiple on offense, and then you can be multiple on defense if that's some crazy stuff that you want to do. I have seen odd and even front ran the first 2 games of the year over here with my varsity staff, and it's been pretty fun to watch. It's cool to watch those two complement each other. Anyway, you can get the Pistol Power offensive system, all those defensive packages, all in one system. Terminology's the same. Everything's great there. Chalkboard forum is open all the time. Go in, ask your questions. If you're bored or you're retiring or you're in your sunset years, whatever, jump on there and answer questions. Coaches always want to know what other people have to say. Joe pretty much gives his response on every one of them. But those guys really like to hear what everyone has to say, even though they really like what Joe says too. Chalk Talks are now weekly because we are in season. If you aren't if you're not sure what a Chalk Talk is, jump over to join.joedanielfootball.com, give us your email, or go to joedanielfootball.com/foundations, throw in your email there and get those free videos, but then you'll also start get the emails for the Chalk Talks. Game film analysis. If you upgrade to the platinum thing, you get game film analysis. That package is, you can send in your film every Friday. I guess you can send in scrimmage film too. Probably not practice. That's not going to work. But you can send in your game film scrimmage, which we're all way past that at this point anyway. And either Joe or Con or one of the guys will take a look at it, and they'll send you back a video watching your film and highlighting what they would have done different, how you can fix things. It's usually low-hanging fruit. If you run a system that the fundamentals are all pretty well set, you maybe you don't need that. I don't know. But they'll definitely help you out with whatever it is you need. Any last comments before we jump out of here, Coach Collins?
No, I don't think so. I just enjoyed coming on here to get to talk some ball, see your hear your voice again, see your face, bounce some
Hey,
ideas off of you. Hopefully, like you said, 4 weeks when this comes out, we'll be all still feeling good about our seasons and in the thick of a hunt for playoff berths.
there we go. Where can we find you on the social media, sir?
Really not much. I'm kind of disappearing on the social medias. On Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now, it is at Coach B Collins, and you'll see some postings about wing tee stuff and spread stuff and like maybe my kids and barbecue, but that's about the only one I use.
There you go. That's a good one to be on. I'm on the X or the Twitter as well, at Coach Chambo OK. You can also email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com if you have any questions, any advice, anything. If you've been connecting some systems for a while, shoot me a DM or an email and let me know what you're running. I'd love to kind of just learn and take notes on how people are combining different things. The podcast is at the FBCP on Twitter/X as well. If this is your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, where it is you get the things that you listen to. Been listening for a while, please leave a review, especially on Apple and Spotify. I don't know if the other ones have review systems or not. If they do, by all means. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.